Good morning. It's Saturday, March 6th. I'm going to have a sort of a double talk today. So one of them is, I think, potentially a repeat of something I've done before. And this is a problem as a storyteller, is it's easy to forget who you've told what stories to. And starting probably about 10 years ago, I kept having to preface things with, let me know if you heard this story before. And so I had this great idea last night for what to do today, and then this morning I had all this doubt. Wait a second, haven't I already talked about it? And I've come around to the point where, it's okay if it's a repeat, because not everyone will have heard it the first time, and I never tell the stories the same way twice, so it's sort of a new version. And this relates to the reading of history. That is to say, when you're reading a history book, what's going on? So there's an author, or a couple of authors. And one of the things in graduate school was to study the author, is to figure out, what do we know about the author? What was their training? What was their background? What are their biases? Are they from a school of thought? Because they're deciding what words to put in that book and what words to leave out. And in this case, it was about the specific example is a case where the fellow had clearly turned his doctoral dissertation into a book. And it was all about how the United States had a quote-unquote good experience in World War I entirely because of the generosity of France. France provided all the artillery, all the fighter planes, some of the uniforms, a lot of the training, so on and so on and so forth. Okay, so I've been assigned to evaluate this book, and I'm reading this book, and the guy's really sort of hammering home his point. About 30 or 40 pages into it, it's getting a little boring. And then I remember that as a fifth grader, I really loved World War I fighter planes and pilots and stories like that. And I remember the American ace Eddie Rickenbacker had written a book, Fighting the Flying Circus. And I thought, wow, I wonder if this author used that book. And I look back in the bibliography, and sure enough, there's Eddie Rickenbacker's book. And then I go through the footnotes, because I want to find where in the book. I don't want to have to read the whole book. And I'm skimming through all the footnotes, and there's no Eddie Rickenbacker. And I'm thinking, now what do I remember from when I was in fifth grade about Eddie Rickenbacker? Oh, wait a second. He kind of cussed the French. The French had bilingual instructors who weren't actually in command of English. They gave the Americans the second best planes. Every bit of ammunition had to be checked because some of it was dented in manufacture and would jam in your... Anyway, so when we got together with the class, and there's all these other graduate students, I told this story. And my point was that the author had been dishonest, or at least cowardly. He hadn't been willing to say, not everyone had a favorable experience. For instance, Eddie Rickenbacker, in his book, Fighting the Flying Circus, pointed out deficiencies X, Y, and Z. Okay, so he chose not to be honest in that way with that one example. And as I lay out to the class, and I personally don't know what other examples might prove that this guy cherry-picked his evidence. But I can say absolutely he cherry-picked it here. And as such, I think we can choose to be skeptical about his success as an author. The professor loved it, because that's what you're doing in grad school, is you're not just learning about history, you're learning about the history tellers. And some of them are cheating. Have a good day.